Welcome to Business English for Success. If you are watching this right now, there's a high chance you've felt this before. You walk into a meeting, you know you've done the work, you understand the numbers, you understand the situation, but the moment your boss looks at you and asks, "So, what's the update?" your mind suddenly goes blank. You start explaining too much, you jump from point to point, and without realizing it, you sound unsure. And deep inside, there's fear. Fear of being ignored, fear of being micromanaged, fear that when pressure comes or layoffs happen, you'll be seen as replaceable. Here's the truth most professionals are never told. In today's workplace, hard work alone is not enough if your boss cannot clearly hear your value. And that is exactly why this channel exists. At Business English for Success, we don't teach complicated textbook business English. We turn dry, confusing business English into easy business English. English you can actually use to protect your job, gain your boss's trust, and move forward in your career. In this video, you're going to learn how real leaders speak to their bosses using two powerful tools, the prep method and the skill of managing up, so you can give clear answers, sound confident in under 30 seconds, and make your boss feel informed, safe, and confident in you. If your career matters to you, stay with us, because what comes next can change the way your boss sees you. Now, let's begin.
Liam, have you ever noticed that moment in a meeting when someone starts speaking to the boss and suddenly the room feels heavier? Not because the topic is difficult, but because the message isn't clear.
Yes, that silence is uncomfortable, and most of the time it happens because the person is circling around the point. Too much background, too many details, and no clear direction.
Exactly. And what many people don't realize is this. In that moment, your boss isn't just bored. Your boss is slowly losing trust. When you don't sound clear, your boss starts thinking, "Do I need to step in?" And that's how micromanagement is born.
That hits hard, because once a boss feels they need to step in, they stop seeing you as an owner and start seeing you as a risk.
Yes, and in today's workplace, sounding like a risk is dangerous. If you sound unsure, you look replaceable, no matter how hard you work behind the scenes.
I think many people listening right now recognize themselves here. They're not incompetent, they're just afraid. Afraid that if they don't explain everything, the boss will think they're hiding something.
And that fear makes people talk more. But leadership works the opposite way. Leaders don't prove value through effort, they prove value through clarity.
So if over-explaining makes you sound junior, what does a leader do differently?
A leader starts with the point, before the explanation, before the story, before the defense. And that's where the prep method comes in, not as a presentation tool, but as a leadership filter.
And this is where managing up changes everything, right?
Exactly. Managing up is not about controlling your boss, it's about helping your boss feel safe, informed, and confident in you. And when that happens, power quietly shifts.
That shift from reporting to leading feels like the difference between surviving and progressing.
And that's why you need to understand what your boss actually listens for. In the next part, we're going to break down how senior leaders process information and why starting with context is the fastest way to lose them. Before we talk about how to speak like a leader, we need to understand something uncomfortable. Your boss does not listen the way you think they do. And once you see this clearly, everything about communication changes.
That already sounds dangerous. What do you mean they don't listen the way we expect?
Most employees believe their boss is listening for effort, for details, for proof that work was done. But senior leaders listen for only three things: risk, impact, and decision.
So while employees are explaining how hard they worked, bosses are silently asking something else?
Exactly. In your boss's head, the questions sound like this: is there a problem? How bad is it? And what do you want me to decide? If your answer doesn't touch those points quickly, their attention drifts.
That explains why some meetings feel rushed, even when the topic is important.
Because to your boss, time is not just money. Time is exposure. Every extra minute spent in confusion feels like risk, and when leaders feel risk, they either interrupt or take control.
Which is when micromanagement shows up.
Yes, micromanagement is not about control, it's about anxiety. When your boss doesn't hear clarity, they step in to reduce uncertainty.
That's frustrating, though, because from the employee's side, it feels like, why don't you trust me?
And from the boss's side, it feels like, why can't I trust you yet? This gap, this misunderstanding, is where many careers quietly stall.
So the real issue isn't English level or intelligence, it's alignment.
Exactly. Leaders speak in outcomes. Employees speak in process. And if you don't bridge that gap, your boss will never see you as leadership material.
So how do we bridge it? How do we speak in outcomes without sounding arrogant or oversimplified?
That's where structure becomes power. In the next part, we're going to break down the PrEP method, not as a formula to memorize, but as a mental framework that aligns your thinking with how leaders think.
So this is where speaking less actually means being taken more seriously.
Exactly. And once you master this, every conversation with your boss starts working in your favor. Here's the mistake most people make when they hear about the PrEP method. They think it's a speaking trick, a formula, something you memorize and repeat. But leaders don't use PrEP because it sounds professional. They use it because it matches the way they think.
So PrEP isn't really about speaking, it's about thinking first.
Exactly. PrEP stands for point, reason, example, and point again. But what really matters is the order. Leaders always start with the conclusion. They don't build up to the point, they lead with it.
That feels risky, though. What if the point is wrong or incomplete?
That fear comes from junior thinking. Leaders understand something different. Clarity creates safety. Even if the point isn't perfect, a clear direction is better than confusion.
So instead of saying, here's what happened, here's the background, here's the problem, you start with the answer.
Yes, you start with the outcome your boss actually cares about. We're on track. We're facing a delay. We need a decision. That single sentence immediately reduces uncertainty.
And once uncertainty drops, control drops.
Exactly. When leaders hear clarity, their brain relaxes. And when their brain relaxes, they listen.
That explains why some people can speak for only a few seconds and still sound powerful.
Because power isn't volume or length, it's structure. PrEP gives your boss the headline first, then the logic, then the proof, and finally reinforces the decision.
But what about sounding too direct, especially in cultures where being indirect feels safer?
That's where skill comes in. PrEP doesn't make you blunt, it makes you intentional. You're not demanding, you're guiding.
So PrEP is really about respect for your boss's time.
Yes, and respect is what turns employees into trusted advisors. In the next part, we're going to see what PrEP actually sounds like in a real conversation with a boss, and why most people fail at the very first sentence.
So we're about to hear the wrong way and the leader way.
Exactly. And once you hear the difference, you'll never speak the same way again.
To truly master the PrEP method, we need to look beyond the formula. We need to see how it lives and breathes in different situations. Let's break down 3 specific scenarios that every professional faces. Liam, are you ready to dive into the first one?
Absolutely. And I think the most common one is the quick update. You know, when the boss catches you in the hallway or at the start of a Zoom call and asks, "How's everything going?"
Exactly. That's scenario 1, the status update. Most people ramble here. They say, we're working on the slides and I talked to marketing. Stop. Use PrEP. Listen to the difference. Point. The project is currently 15% ahead of schedule. Reason. Because we automated the data entry phase last week.
Example, for instance, the report that used to take 5 hours now takes only 30 minutes. Point. So we are on track to deliver the final version by Friday.
That's incredibly sharp. In 20 seconds, the boss knows the status, the reason for success, and the final deadline. What about scenario 2, something more persuasive?
Scenario 2, pitching an idea. This is where you manage up by solving a problem the boss didn't even know they had. Point. I propose we switch our team syncs from daily to twice a week. Reason, to give the team more deep work time and reduce meeting fatigue. Example, right now the design team loses about 4 hours of peak creative time every morning just preparing for the daily update. Point, by making this shift, we can increase our weekly output by at least 10%.
I noticed you didn't say "I want." You said "I propose" and focused on output. That's the leadership shift we talked about. Now, what about the hardest one? Scenario 3, asking for resources.
This is where most people fail because they sound like they're complaining, but a leader uses prep to show a business need. Point. We need to bring on a temporary freelancer for the next 3 weeks. Reason? Our current volume has increased by 30%, which is creating a bottleneck in quality control. Example. Last week, we nearly missed a critical bug in the software because the team was rushing to meet the deadline. Point. Adding this resource now will protect our reputation and ensure a flawless launch.
It sounds so logical when you put it that way. You aren't asking for a favor, you're offering a way to protect the launch.
Now, before we move to part 5, let's stop at the language lab. To make your prep sound authentic, you need to swap junior vocabulary for leadership vocabulary.
I love this. What's the first swap?
First, swap I think for my recommendation is. I think sounds like an opinion. My recommendation sounds like an expert analysis. Second, swap we have a problem for we are navigating a challenge. A problem is a wall. A challenge is something you move through.
That's subtle but powerful. It changes the energy of the conversation. What about when we aren't sure? Instead of "I'll try my best," what should we say?
Say, I will prioritize this to ensure the best outcome. It's about commitment, not just trying. Keep these in mind because we're about to use them in the most difficult conversation of all. Delivering bad news. Liam, imagine your heart sinks. You just realized there's a $10,000 budget deficit, or a major client is unhappy. Most people want to hide. They want to wait until they have a perfect solution.
That's exactly what I would do. I'd wait because I'm afraid of the reaction.
But silence is the enemy of trust. In leadership, bad news is not the problem. Surprises are. Here is how you use prep to deliver bad news while actually increasing your boss's confidence in you.
How do we start? It feels so heavy.
We start with the point, and we don't sugarcoat it. I'm calling to inform you that we are facing a budget discrepancy of $10,000 for this quarter. No excuses, just the fact.
Oh. Then the reason?
Exactly. The reason is an unexpected 15% price hike from our primary raw material supplier. Then, the example. For instance, the cost of specialized steel increased overnight due to the new trade regulations.
But won't the boss get angry now?
Not if you finish with the final point, which is your solution. I have already identified 2 areas where we can reduce spending to offset this cost, and I'll have a revised budget for your approval by 4 p.m. today. Would you like to see the options then?
You just turned a disaster into a process. You didn't just dump a problem on their desk, you showed them you were already fixing it.
That is the definition of managing up. You are protecting your boss's peace of mind. When they see you handle a $10,000 mistake with that much structure, they realize they can trust you with $1 million project. There is one final secret to the prep method that many people overlook. It's not just what you say, It's the silence after you say it.
The silence? You mean not filling the awkward gap?
Yes, junior employees feel the need to keep talking to prove they know everything. They finish their prep and then say, yeah, so I hope that's okay, and I can do more research if you want. They kill their own authority.
I do that. I'm so nervous that the boss is judging me that I just keep talking.
A leader finishes their final point, and then they stop. They hold the space. This silence signals that you are confident in your logic. It gives the boss time to process.
So silence is actually a part of the prep method. It's the P at the end, the power.
Exactly. In the final part of our session, we're going to look at how to build this into a daily habit so that within 30 days, your boss starts treating you like a partner, not just a subordinate. We've covered a lot today, from the mental filter of the PRET method to the power words that change how you are perceived. But knowledge without action is just noise.
So what is the first step for someone watching right now who wants to start tomorrow morning?
Step 1. Tomorrow, in your first meeting, don't speak first. Listen. Then, when you do speak, use prep for just one update. Step 2. Pay attention to your boss's face. Notice how they stop multitasking and actually look at you. Step 3. Join our community. In the comments below, I want you to write one point and reason for a project you are working on right now. Liam and I will be looking at them.
It's amazing how much power is hidden in just 4 simple letters, P-R-E-P.
It's the key that unlocks the door to the next level of your career. Thank you for staying with us through this deep dive at Business English for Success. Remember, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be clear.
See you in the next session. Speak with intent and lead with confidence.